Hey there, everyone. Welcome to QSC Tech Talk. I'm Golden Preciado, audio engineer and House of Worship specialist here with QSC. You know, it's funny, it was so quiet here a second ago, and all of a sudden the leaf blowers are right outside my window, so I hope it's not too darn loud right now. While we're waiting for people to get online, I just wanted to let you know, every Thursday, Campus Jacks streams their live stream of the band that's playing at our venue to QSC's Facebook page. And I encourage you to go take a look at it when it comes on. Tonight we have Leah Booth. She's a fabulous jazz singer. And the entire operation is a QSC house. We use a TouchMix-30 Pro. And front of house, monitors, and the live stream are all run from this one mixer. We have an indoor system and an outdoor system, and it's just a wonderful little production that we do. But if you want to see and hear QSC mixers, the TouchMix-30 Pro in action, then go to the QSC Facebook page at 7 o'clock tonight, Pacific Standard Time. And as we're getting more people online, I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. Again, I'm Golden Preciado, House of Worship Specialist with QSC. This is the second episode in a series of live streams covering mixer setup and workflow for common applications in House of Worship services. And I'm actually in the middle of doing a series of 6 tech talks where I am showing you how to create a contemporary House of Worship scene from scratch on a TouchMix-30 Pro. And as I create this scene, I'm not only teaching you how to use the many powerful features available to you on your TouchMix, but you will also be learning best how to organize and streamline your workflow, making your live mixing experience intuitive and simple for you and your volunteers in a House of Worship setting. So I'll be talking about church service dynamics as we do this, and that is determining how we continue to set up and organize our scene. So in the last episode, we set up all our input channels, including drums, bass, keys, guitars, vocals. We had spoken word in there, and we even used our stereo input channels for background music and our presentation computers, like ProPresenter, because many churches are using ProPresenter for their media displays. Today, we will be setting up all of our output channels. So these will be things like our monitors or wedges for the worship band, in-ear monitors for the worship band. We'll use some of our outputs to set up a discrete broadcast mix. And that will feed our live stream. We'll use a few outputs to feed other zones in our church, like the lobby or foyer area, the outdoor patio or cry room for all the mommies and babies out there. And today, as I said earlier, I will be demonstrating on my TouchMix-30 Pro mixer, but here is the cool thing, guys. Most of the concepts and workflow that you'll be learning can be applied to most digital mixers. So whatever gear you're using right now, the information here will be super useful to you. So thank you so much again for joining us. I just wanted to let you know I'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. So please post your questions in the comments below. We also have Brad, our moderator, working behind the scenes there, who can answer questions for you in the comments as well. So with all that said, let's dig in, and I am going to switch to my mixer cam. There we go. So the first thing we want to do, if you remember last time we got together, we created our inputs and then saved our scene, and we called it Our Cool Church. So I'm going to open up that scene so we can start working from it. I press right there, and there it is, Our Cool Church. And I'm going to recall that scene. And then I'm going to push our home button there to get us back to our main page. And you can see as I scroll through the inputs, this is what we worked on last time. We had drums in this bank, keys and guitars and some free channels. We put our vocals and our spoken word here on this third bank. Today, we'll be talking about output channels. Now, our output channels are right here listed on the left. And these are also called auxiliaries or aux channels. Now, the cool thing about our aux channels is they are color-coded. So as you scroll through, you'll see that the faders change colors. This lets you know that you are not on the main mix. You are in some other output channel, and these are blue here. If you see color on your faders and you think you're adjusting the main mix, you are not on the main mix. So if you are intending to be on the main mix, your faders need to be white like that. So when I'm working with the band and I set up the monitors, I like to set up my monitors from left to right and front to back from the mix position. So I'm looking at the band and my monitors will be 1, 2, 3 from left to right, and then 4, 5, 6, the second row in the back. It's easier and quick to get to whichever monitor you want to work with by doing it that way. So the first thing we're going to do is label our first 3 auxiliary sends. These are going to be monitor wedges for keyboards, our lead worship leader, and our background vocal. And first thing I'm going to do is label it, what it is. So I pressed aux 1. You see I have red faders there. Now I'm going to click up here in this gray area, and this is how I'm going to adjust the name setting of that channel. So right now we're in aux 1. I'm going to click up here. The clear button clears your name out, and then you can type it in. I'm going to type keys because this is the keys monitor. And you can see it's labeled it over here. Right here, you have previous and next. I'm going to press next, and you can see aux 2 is displayed right there, and that tells me that I'm working on aux 2. I'm going to label aux 2, press the clear button to clear it out. This is my worship leader's monitor, so I'm going to title it lead. And then I'll press the next button again, bringing me to aux 3, and you can see that it says aux 3 and I'm in there, so I'll click in the name field. And this one is going to be for my background vocals, so I'll type BGV for background vocals. And the next thing we want to do, I'm going to add an EQ for these first 3 monitor mixes. I'm going to widen up my shot just so I can show you what I'm going to do, because I'm going to use the copy and paste function, which is right there. And I'm going to go to I'm going to press the home button so I can get back here. And I'm going to get back into my keys channel here. And what I'm going to do is press PEQ, and I'm going to roll off some low end in my wedges by pressing that low cut button right there. You can see how it rolled it off. And then right here, I'm going to make it roll it back to 100 hertz right there. That'll cut out any additional mud in the monitors that may arise. So it'll clean stuff up. Now, if you're using QSC speakers, you actually have buttons right on the back of your speaker that you can set to monitor position and it automatically puts in a rocking EQ specifically for four monitors. It works really well. Now, let's say you found that this EQ right here was a good fit for what you're working with your praise and worship band, and you want to copy and paste that EQ into the other 3 outputs. Right over here, U7, that is your copy button. Press that, and it just copied this EQ page. Now we'll press the next button, and it shows us that we're in aux 2. Right here, U8, that is the paste button. And we will paste that in. Let's scroll over to aux 3 and let's paste that in. So we just pasted the same EQ in the first 3 monitors. Something to know about copy and paste, whichever window you are in, when you press copy, those are the settings that you copy. So for example, if you were in the GEQ and you made changes and you pressed copy, it would copy the graphic EQ changes. If you were in the overview window, which has a combination of things, it would copy the entire window. And then you could copy that overview into the aux channel of another overview. Let's say you were right here in an aux mix and you had faders up. If you pressed copy while you were in a mix window, it would copy the entire mix. You could choose another mix, press the paste button, and it would paste the entire mix over to that aux. So copy and paste is a super handy function, and I think you'll find that you use it a lot once you start working with the TouchMix. So right now, I'm going to zoom back in. Now what we want to do is let's label up our outputs 4, 5, and 6. So aux 4, 5, and 6. I'll click on 4 right here. These are going to be in-ear monitors for my electric guitar player, bass, and drums. They're using in-ear monitors in our hypothetical church. So I'll press right here to open up the settings, and under setup is where I change the name. So right here, clear elect IEM. IEM stands for in-ear monitors. And there I labeled it. Now I'm going to scroll over to the next aux channel. You can see that I'm now in 5. I'll click in the name window. I'm going to type that. That one's going to be bass. Oops, I'm going to clear it out first. Bass IEM. And then I'm going to title that last one. Aux 6 is going to be my drums. IEM. And there you have it. Something I like to do that's super helpful, if you don't know the names of all your players, I enter that information right along with what instrument it is. So, for example, I would put keys and then John, or lead Brandon. And that way you appear super smart and intelligent because you know everybody's name right off the top of your head. So entering additional information into your names, your name fields are super helpful. So now what we're going to do, our auxiliary 7 and 8 are going to be our broadcast mix. Our broadcast mix is a stereo mix that we're setting up that will feed our live stream. And what we want to do is link auxiliary 7 and 8 together. Under setup, you'll see right here where it says link. Do you want a link? Yes. So now there are 2 channels that are linked together, and I'm going to title them really quick. This is going to be broadcast left, enter, and 8 will be broadcast right. Now, one way that you know they're linked is when you go to your aux channels and look, the faders move together. Those channels are moving together, and that's how you know they're linked. You also know they're linked because when you look over here on the side, you'll see that the 2 boxes have become one larger box. So that's one way to tell. So next, one thing to note with our broadcast mix, and I think we'll get deeper into this on another Tech Talk. I'm going to set mine to post fader. My broadcast mix is in post fader, and that means any move that I make on the main mix will be reflected in the broadcast mix. And if you're one person who is having to keep track with front of house and broadcast at the same time because they're two discrete mixes, post fader is the way to do it. If you have a separate person mixing on an iPad, they could mix in pre-fader that broadcast mix and just do an amazing sounding mix without having to worry about what the main mix is doing. But in my hypothetical church, I'm pretending that I'm the only mixer doing front of house and broadcast. So I want to be in post fader. So changes that I make to the main mix will reflect in my broadcast mix. So now, moving on to aux 9. So aux 9, this in our hypothetical church, there are 4 zones that we have that need to receive audio. There's a foyer area, a cry room, there's a courtyard, and there is ALS, and ALS stands for Assisted Listening System. It's for the hearing impaired. Most churches I've worked in have an ALS system, which is why we are going to add it to our scene right here. So aux 9 will be our foyer. We're going to label that foyer. aux 10 will be our cry room. I didn't put a space, but that's okay. And aux 11 will be our courtyard. So I'm labeling that courtyard. And aux 12, where you can see it reflected here, will be our ALS, our Assisted Listening System. Now, before I get started with how I'm feeding these, I'm going to go back to our broadcast mix here. What I'm going to do is push up all my faders to a nominal position in our broadcast mix. So right off the get-go, we'll have signal being fed into our broadcast mix. And the reason we're doing this is we are going to use our broadcast mix to feed those other mixes we just created. So bringing these faders up to a nominal position in our broadcast mix. Okay, so now let's go back to foyer. The way we're going to feed information, and we want to use our broadcast mix for this because that's going to be our most stunning mix. The front of house mix will be missing certain information, most likely like drums and electric guitar, because acoustically they're so loud, we're not really reinforcing them too much in the house. So our broadcast mix is where we created the awesome mix where we can hear everything. And what we're going to do is we are going to push our aux mix 7 and 8 into these other 4 zones. So the TouchMix-30 allows you to send audio from any of the aux mixes 1 through 8 to any of the aux mixes 9 through 14. So we are going to choose to push aux 7 and 8, which is our broadcast mix. We're going to push that into 9. So now the foyer has signal. Then we'll go to the cry room. We're going to add the broadcast mix to the cry room. Then we'll go to the courtyard. And we'll add broadcast mix to the courtyard. Then we'll go to our assisted listening system, and we will add broadcast mix to the assisted listening system. So one thing to notice here is we were dealing with a stereo mix in our broadcast, but we were pushing it into a mono mix for the foyer, cry room, courtyard, and assisted listening system. Now, when you push stereo into a mono mix, it becomes mono summed, and certain information become a little skewed. For example, if you had an electric guitar that was panned slightly, it may come out quieter in the mono mix. So you have the option of actually adding that back to taste along with the broadcast mix. We push the broadcast mix into our mono zone. We're not hearing enough electric guitar, so we're just going to add enough electric guitar to fill in the mix and make the mix sit perfect. Perhaps the keys were just not quite loud enough once we pulled up the broadcast mix in there. So we'll add just a little keys. And that's the way you can balance out the mixes when going from a stereo mix to a mono summed mix, as we did here. The other thing we'll want to do is change the pickoff points for these. I'm going to open up my ALS mix to post fader, because again, we don't want to have to pay attention to these mixes. When we make a change on the main mix, we want this to reflect in these other zones. So I did that to the ALS. Now I'm going to back up. Now we're inside the courtyard. Let's change that to post. Now we're back in the cry room. Let's change that to post. And now we're back in the foyer. We change that to post. So we are all set up in our zones. Now, some of you smart guys are out there are probably wondering, well, why don't we just daisy chains all the speakers together in the different zones? Well, yeah, you could do that. But the beauty of having your zones on separate faders is that if a specific room needs less or more volume, you don't have to walk to that room and change the volume on the speaker. You can just do it from the mixer. So, and this happens to me often at church. The usher will come up to me and say, the cry room would like less volume. So I can just make an adjustment to the cry room only and turn down that fader and not affect any of my other zones there. So that's why we have our zones on separate faders. The last thing we want to do on aux 13 and 14 right here is open that up. We are going to link that together and create a record output. And what I'm going to do is call this record left. And then I'm going to call 14 record right. And then I'm going to link them together by pressing this link button right here. And we have our stereo channel created. And you can see that right here. It's reflected because you can see that our two boxes have turned into one big box. Now, oftentimes, actually all the time, our pastor would like the service recorded because they'll post that. It'll post that onto their website so people can listen to it later. So what we're going to do is go back to our main mix, and we are going to look over here under our 2-track mix. This is where our record fader is right here. What we need to do is tell right now the record fader is set to record the left-right mix. But remember, our awesome mix is on 7 and 8. And what we're going to do is push 7 and 8 into our record mix right here. So now we have our awesome broadcast mix in our record mix. And then we're going to go back to our record mix, and we're going to tell it to, instead of recording the main left right, we want it to record aux 13 and 14, which we have just set up to record, to receive our broadcast mix. And you would adjust this fader to get your record levels nice and hot. Once you're done with that, you can export it to an MP3 just by pressing this button right down here and letting your recording export to an MP3. Or you can deal with the multi-tracks separately. And I'm going to go back to our main mix there. Now, one thing we want to not forget to do is save our scene, because we are at the end of the output section. So we're going to press up here in scene, go save as, and it shows you we are going to save over our cool church, which is what we want to do. Here we go. So we are good to go. I'm going to be switching back to my other camera. And here we are. All right. So there you have it. We have successfully set up our output channels for our cool church. That's the name of the scene, our cool church. In the next episode in this series, we will set up effects and we'll learn how to use a handy little tool on our TouchMix-30 called the Effects Wizard, which is especially helpful if you're not quite sure which effects to use for which application. So, Nicholas, hey, glad to see you on here. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. This has been pretty cool. I enjoy teaching and showing people how to do things on their mixers and how to run a smoother operation. We have a bunch to look forward to in our future series as we continue through this mixer workflow. And we're going to learn how to use DCAs and groups. We'll learn how to set up user buttons, and we'll learn how to set up and use custom faders. All this super helpful in a smooth workflow. Now, if you found this House of Worship audio training to be helpful, then you'll really enjoy being a part of our Facebook group. And it's called Church Sound Training. This group was actually created for church sound people and their volunteers, but the audio concepts that are taught here are universal and applicable across the board. There'll be a link to the Church Sound Training Facebook group in the comments, and please pass that link on to all those you think might benefit. Also wanted to let you know, on December 4th, I'll be presenting at a virtual conference organized by soundgirls.org, and I'll be teaching on broadcast mixing for live streaming, which is super relevant, especially in today's House of Worship world, as many churches are not meeting in person. You can register for that conference at soundgirls.org. And again, that's soundgirls.org. The link will be at the comments below. My presentation is December 4th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And thank you again so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. I'm Golden Preciado, and from all of us here at QSC, strive for excellence. Never stop learning and be the best that you can be. And I'll see you on the next QSC Tech Talk.